What is up, guys? We are back in the garage working on the Power Wheels go-kart, and in our last video we left off by building this beautiful chain tensioner, but the spring on it is much too weak, so I went ahead and purchased a much beefier, stronger spring. It is a little bit longer. I was trying to keep it short, but this is what they had in stock, so we're going to make it work. So we're going to build some sort of bracket off of this frame that's going to connect to this side of the spring, and that'll give our tensioner all the tension it needs. So we're going to start things off by getting this old spring off, putting the new one on, and then figuring out where exactly we need to mount this lifting eye, because this is what's going to be giving us adjustability. We'll be able to adjust exactly how much tension we want put on that spring. So I determined I want the bracket to sit right on the edge of this tube. That'll give me a little bit of tension on that spring, a little bit of tension on the chain, and that'll give me also about 2.5 inches of adjustment. So I have this tube here. I'm gonna cut it, notch it, and get it attached onto the frame right there. Tube's tacked into place. I got this piece of steel here. I'm just gonna get that welded along the bottom, drill a hole in it, and that's what this little eye bolt is gonna be fed through. And then I might just need to build some little gussets off of that to help support this whole thing and keep it from pulling one way or another. All right, so I got this bracket tacked in, I got the spring hooked up, and now as I kind of play around with the chain, you can see how that tensioner is always putting tension back on it. So now I'm gonna need to add some gussets to this bracket here. So I'm gonna weld those on, and that's just gonna really stiffen up this bracket so it doesn't get ripped off. Guess the only thing left is to fire this thing up and see if all that was worth it or if it's not gonna work at all. I think I got that chain pretty dialed in. It wasn't bouncing around on that last test, and in order to achieve those results, I have this nut back here and I put a little bit of pressure onto this arm, and that's just acting as a dampener, putting a bunch of friction in here, so that way that arm's not bouncing, but it's actually kind of dampened, and it seemed to really quiet down that chain. Now that the chain's pretty much where I want it, we need to find a way to protect it, so I'm going to be breaking out the cardboard and starting to design some sort of guard. I'm thinking it's going to go in between the seat and my feet and then the chain, and then it'll have a little piece that comes over the top, and we'll leave the side open because it really doesn't matter if anything gets beat up out there. The only thing that's going to be out there is that Power Wheels body. I've got the chain guard pretty much cut out of cardboard. I got clearances for the sprockets, the steering, the tensioner, all sorts of stuff. So I think this is the design I'm gonna go with. And then on top, there's just this 2-inch lip, and that should protect whoever's driving this thing in case that chain were to pop off. And I am gonna be transferring everything over to this 16 gauge steel, and this was the biggest piece I could get in the time that I wanted it. So I am gonna have to splice 2 pieces together so I can get the total length of that chain guard. What's up, guys? So it is the very next day, and I was able to successfully convert this cardboard template over into sheet metal. So you're probably noticing some discoloration in here. It did warp when I was welding it, but I just beat that back straight. No problems there. So I'm gonna start working on the 2-inch wide pieces, get all that tacked on, and then comes the hard part of figuring out how in the world we're gonna connect this to the frame. Got all my pieces cut out, so they're gonna get welded onto the shield just like so. And then just like this shield here, I am going to have to splice a couple pieces together because they're not going to be long enough. And then on the ends, I'm going to attach this tube and then have that piece of sheet run down to the tube. That way if the chain does come off, hopefully it'll slap that tube and kind of roll off of it. I think I'll have a better chance of it rolling off as opposed to just that hard edge of the sheet metal. The chain will probably catch it and just rip this whole thing to shreds. But if the chain comes off, it's gonna do a lot of damage anyways, but we're gonna try to minimize that. Got a lot of welding to do, and you're gonna see this cardboard up, and you're probably gonna wonder what that's for. That's flame resistant cardboard, and I'm getting a lot of porosity in my welds, and I think it's just because like little breezes are coming through and pulling out that gas from underneath my nozzle. So we're gonna see if that helps. A lot of clamps, but this is how I am going to attempt to keep this thing as flat as possible while I get it all tacked up. Chain guard is in, and it is significantly stiffer than it was, not wobbling all around. Now I do have about, it's like 1.5 inch gap in between the top of this and the chain. So I think I'm gonna hack about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch off the bottom of this plate and just try to sink this down a little bit more. That way I don't have any issues getting the body on. Unfortunately, when I hacked off all that stuff off the bottom, all the other cutouts had to also be moved up. I took off about 5/8 of an inch. So that seems to give me just the right amount of clearance, and it also lowered that shield 5/8 of an inch, which is pretty good. That'll just give me more room to get the body on. But that's all I have time for today. I'm gonna get this cleaned up on the next video, and then I gotta figure out how to get it in. And who knows, maybe we'll even take this thing for its first test ride. See you then.